It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, my 60th birthday. I had baked a cake, set the table, and waited for my son and his wife to arrive. When the door finally opened, I rushed forward with tears of joy. But instead of hugs or warm wishes, my son looked me dead in the eye and said words that cut deeper than any knife. "You're not really our mother anymore. You're just our money source." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My knees trembled. I thought I had misheard. After all, wasn't I the woman who raised him single-handedly after his father died? Wasn't I the one who paid for his education, bought his first car, and even covered his rent when he and his wife had nothing? I stared at him, waiting for a laugh, a sign that this was some cruel joke. But there was no laughter, only silence, and his wife's cold smile, as if she had won a battle I didn't even know I was fighting. My heart broke in that instant. All the years of sacrifice, every penny I had saved, every sleepless night worrying about their future, it all felt worthless. And that was just the beginning. Because what happened after those words changed my life forever. Friends, maybe you think this is just a story, something I invented to get your attention. But I promise you, every word I just told you is real. That moment on my birthday, when my own son said I was nothing more than a money source, it wasn't just a sentence. It was the shattering of my heart, the breaking of a bond I thought could never be broken. For hours I sat in silence that day. The candles on the cake burned down to nothing, but inside me something else was burning too. The realization that love can be taken for granted, even by the people we love most. And that's why I share my stories here. Because I know I'm not the only one who has felt invisible, unappreciated, or betrayed by the very people we gave our lives to. Maybe you have too. Maybe you've sacrificed for your family, only to be pushed aside when they no longer needed you. When I speak here, I'm not just talking to a screen. I'm talking to you, to people who understand pain, who know the value of sacrifice, who crave a reminder that they are not alone. You, my listeners, are more than just viewers. You are my family now. This channel is called Memories with Mia. These are not fairy tales. They are the scars I carry, the lessons I've learned, and the strength I've found in the middle of heartbreak. If you believe, like I do, that family is not only made by blood, but by love, then I invite you to stay with me. Subscribe, not because it's just another channel, but because by doing so, you become part of something bigger, a family that sees, hears, and values you. So, welcome to Memories with Mia. Let's walk through these memories together. When I became a mother, my entire life changed. I was only 23 when my husband passed away, leaving me with a newborn son in my arms and no roadmap for the future. The nights were long, the days were exhausting, but I never once regretted the weight of responsibility on my shoulders. I worked 2 jobs when he was little, typing documents by day, cleaning offices by night. I gave up sleep, I gave up rest, but I never gave up on him. There were days when I had only bread and tea for myself while he ate a full meal. Mothers don't get hungry, I would joke, though inside I often went to bed with an empty stomach. As he grew, my sacrifices grew too. When other women my age bought new clothes or treated themselves to vacations, I was paying tuition fees and buying second-hand furniture for our small apartment. When promotions came at work, I turned them down, because promotions meant travel, and travel meant leaving my boy alone. I didn't want him to ever feel abandoned. I remember his tiny hand clutching mine on his first day of school. "Don't go, Mommy," he whispered, his eyes brimming with fear. And I promised him then, "I'll always be here, always." That promise became my religion. By the time he turned 18, I had saved enough for college. Every dollar I set aside was a dollar I denied myself. No dinners out, no cinema tickets, no new curtains for the house. But watching him walk across that stage at graduation, cap and gown on his shoulders, I thought, it was all worth it. Every sacrifice. When he married Lena, I welcomed her with open arms. I wanted her to feel like my daughter. I bought them furniture for their first apartment, covered their rent when money was tight, and filled their fridge whenever I visited. I told myself, this is what mothers do. We give, so our children can fly higher. But slowly, something began to change. The boy who once ran into my arms after school now avoided my gaze. The young man who used to say, "Thanks, Mom, you're the best," now spoke only when he needed money. And Lena, the daughter I thought I had gained, began making small comments that cut like paper against my heart. "We'll manage, don't worry," she would say coldly after I offered help. Or worse, "Maybe you should think about saving your money for yourself." At first I brushed it aside. I told myself she was shy or simply adjusting to marriage. But the distance grew. Calls became shorter, visits became rare. My role in their lives shrank to that of a silent provider. The first real red flag came one evening when I stopped by their apartment unannounced. I had brought groceries, chicken, vegetables, and a cake I baked. But when Lena opened the door, she looked almost annoyed. She took the bags without a smile and whispered something to my son in the hallway. I saw him roll his eyes. They thought I didn't notice. But a mother's heart notices everything. I stood there in that doorway, holding the cake in my hands, realizing I was no longer welcome in the home I had built for them. And for the first time in years, I felt the sting of a thought I had never dared to think before. Maybe I am not part of their family anymore. For months, I had been preparing for what I thought would be the most beautiful day of my life. My son's wedding. I remember walking through shops, carefully choosing a pale blue dress that made me feel elegant but not overshadowing. I spent hours deciding on shoes, on jewelry, even on the little speech I imagined giving at the reception. I told all my friends at work, "My son is getting married soon. It will be the proudest day of my life." I saved $1,000, planning to give it as a wedding gift. I cleaned my home from top to bottom, imagining they would stop by after the ceremony so we could celebrate together. I even called my sister in another city, telling her to book the date because it will be a family celebration. But then came the moment that shattered me. One evening, I called my son to ask about the final arrangements. "Max," I said softly, "do we have a date yet? I want to make sure everything is perfect." He hesitated. I heard him sigh, and then Lena's voice cut through the silence, cold, sharp, unforgiving. "Oh, we already got married yesterday," she said. "It was small. We only invited special people." Special people. The words hit me like ice water. For 3 years, I had been paying their rent. I had bought every piece of furniture in their home. I had filled their refrigerator when they had nothing to eat. And now, on the most important day of their lives, I wasn't considered special. I stood there, clutching the phone like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My son didn't even meet my eyes when I looked at him later. Lena, on the other hand, smiled smugly, sinking into the sofa I had bought for them, as if daring me to protest. In my closet hung the dress I had chosen for the wedding, the shoes, the jewelry, all waiting for a day that never came. I had imagined smiling for photos, holding my son's arm as he began a new chapter of life. Instead, I was erased, forgotten. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed every memory, every sacrifice, the first steps he took as a toddler, the nights I stayed up when he had a fever, the endless hours of work so he could go to college. Was all of that invisible? Did none of it make me special enough to stand beside him on his wedding day? The next morning, my phone buzzed. A notification from social media. Against my better judgment, I opened it. And there it was. Photos. Dozens of them. My son in a sharp black suit, Lena glowing in her white gown, her parents beside them, smiling proudly, her siblings raising glasses of champagne. A family portrait, complete in every way except for me. I stared at those pictures until my eyes blurred with tears. I had even given Lena money the month before, thinking it was for personal expenses. Now I realized it had helped pay for the very dress she wore to a wedding I wasn't invited to, Humiliation, anger, grief, it all twisted inside me. But as painful as that betrayal was, it was only the beginning. Because a week later, Lena called again, but this time, her voice wasn't smug. It was desperate. "Rent is overdue," she said. "The landlord says he'll evict us if we don't pay. You forgot to make the transfer." I froze, the phone pressed to my ear. They had excluded me from their wedding, erased me from their happiness, and now they expected me to rescue them again, as if nothing had happened. My lips trembled, but I stayed silent. Something inside me shifted. That day, I thought I was broken, but the real storm was yet to come. The day after the wedding revelation, I told myself I would stop helping them. I told myself, this is it. They have gone too far. But a mother's heart is weak when her child is in need. When Lena called, her voice dripping with desperation, "Please, the landlord says we'll be thrown out. We don't know what to do without you." My hand moved almost by habit. I transferred the money, even as tears blurred my vision. It wasn't the first time, and it certainly wasn't the last. Month after month, I paid their $500 rent. Groceries, another $200, $300. Furniture, I had spent nearly $200. A car loan they promised to repay, $2,500 gone forever. Medical bills, $800. Every emergency they had became mine to solve. I kept track once. In 3 years, I had spent more than $30,000 keeping them afloat. $30,000. Money my late husband left me so I could live comfortably in my retirement. Money that could have taken me traveling, allowed me to rest after a lifetime of hard work. Instead, it bought their comfort while I ate beans and rice, postponing my own doctor's visits because I couldn't afford it. It wasn't just the money, it was the constant emotional weight. I lived with my phone in my hand, always waiting for the next call. The fridge broke. We need help. Our car payment is due. Can you cover it? I need new clothes for work, just this once. Each call ended with me rushing to the bank, rearranging my own bills, cutting something from my own life. What hurt the most was not the giving. It was their lack of gratitude. My son stopped visiting unless he needed something. Lena's voice turned sweet only when she was asking for money. The rest of the time, I was invisible, treated like a distant relative rather than the woman who had given them everything. I told myself it was temporary, that once they got on their feet, they would thank me. That love would return. But instead, the demands grew bolder. One night, I overheard them whispering in the living room while I was in the kitchen. They thought I couldn't hear. "She'll pay it," Lena said confidently. "She always does. We just need to make her believe she's the only one who can help." My heart sank. It wasn't a request anymore. It was a strategy. And then came the worst twist of all. One afternoon, I came home to find them sitting in my living room, Lena pacing, my son silent, and a stranger in a suit flipping through my personal documents on the table. "This is Mr. Fisher," Lena explained with false warmth. "He's a lawyer. We're concerned about your decisions, the way you've been cutting back support lately. It doesn't seem like you're thinking clearly." "Thinking clearly?" I repeated, my voice trembling. "Yes," she said smoothly. "At your age, confusion is normal. We just want to make sure your finances are managed properly. We're suggesting a power of attorney. It will be easier for all of us if Max and I handle your accounts directly." In that moment, everything became clear. They weren't just using me. They weren't just draining me of money. They wanted control, not love, not gratitude, not even a relationship. Just control over every last dollar I had. I looked at the lawyer, then at my son. His head was bowed, ashamed, but he didn't stop her. He didn't defend me. That silence hurt more than any words ever could. And in that silence, I realized something terrifying. If I didn't stand up now, I would lose not only my money, but my freedom. That evening, after the lawyer left my house with his polished smile and empty promises, I sat alone in my bedroom. The silence pressed on my chest like a weight I could barely carry. I opened my drawer and pulled out an old photo album. There was my son at 5 years old, grinning with a missing tooth, holding the paper crown I had made him for his birthday. There he was at 10, asleep on the couch, clutching the teddy bear I had sewn after staying up all night. There he was at 18, wearing his graduation cap, tears in his eyes as he hugged me and whispered, "Thanks, Mom. I couldn't have done this without you." What happened to that boy? Where did he go? My eyes drifted to the mirror across the room. I barely recognized the woman staring back. Her hair was grayer, her eyes duller, her shoulders bent beneath invisible burdens. For years I had told myself I was strong because I carried everyone's weight. But in that reflection, I saw the truth. I wasn't strong. I was drained, used, forgotten. And then, like a knife through the fog, the thought came, I was not their mother anymore. I was just their ATM with feelings. The words struck me so hard I whispered them out loud, testing their taste. Bitter, ugly, true. Tears ran down my face, but for the first time, they weren't only tears of sorrow. They were tears of anger, hot, cleansing, awakening. I thought of my husband, gone too soon. The money he had left was meant to protect me, to give me dignity in old age. I had spent it all trying to buy love from people who only saw me as a bank account. Would he be proud of me now? Or would he grieve the woman I had become, desperate, begging for scraps of affection? The thought was unbearable. The next morning, I drove to the cemetery. I hadn't been there in months, too busy running errands for Max and Lena. I knelt by my husband's grave, my hand resting on the cool stone. "My love," I whispered. "I think I lost myself. After you left, I poured everything into our son. I thought if I gave him everything, he would never feel the emptiness I felt. But in doing so, I forgot myself. I became invisible. I became—" My voice broke. An ATM. A soft wind stirred the trees above me, and in that silence, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not because he answered, but because I finally listened to my own voice. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with a pen and paper. I wrote down every expense from the past 3 years: rent, food, furniture, emergencies. The number at the bottom made my hands shake. Over $33,000. $33,000 gone. But more than the money, I saw the years, my years. The trips I didn't take, the friends I stopped seeing, the dreams I buried. And suddenly, I felt something new inside me. Not despair, not fear, but determination. For the first time in decades, I asked myself a simple question. What if I lived for me? I looked in the mirror again before going to bed. The woman staring back wasn't smiling, but there was a spark in her eyes, a spark I hadn't seen in years. That night, I made my decision. The old Mia died, and a new one was born. The knock on my door was loud, almost violent. When I opened it, there they were, Max, Lena, and Mr. Fisher, the lawyer in his expensive suit. I felt my stomach twist, but I didn't step aside. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice flat. Lena smiled, that cold smile she always wore when she thought she was winning. "We need to talk," she said, brushing past me without waiting for an invitation. Max followed, eyes down. Mr. Fisher closed the door behind them. I crossed my arms. "Say what you came to say." Mr. Fisher opened a folder and laid papers on the coffee table. "Mrs. Carter," he began smoothly, "your children are deeply concerned about your financial decisions. They believe you're no longer capable of managing your assets responsibly." "Children," I shot back. "I have 1 son, not 2. Lena's eyes narrowed, but she kept her composure. "This is for your own good. You're giving away money recklessly, spending on things you don't need, refusing to prioritize your health. If you sign this power of attorney, Max and I will take care of everything. You won't have to worry anymore." "Won't have to worry," I repeated bitterly, "because you'll be in control." Max finally looked up. "Mom, please, it's easier this way. We're just trying to help you." "Help me?" I laughed, a hollow sound. Is that what you call it? Help? Was it help when you left me out of your wedding? Was it help when you drained my savings? Was it help when you called me your money source instead of your mother? His face paled. Lena reached for his hand. Don't let her manipulate you, Max. This is exactly why we need control. I stood, anger trembling in my voice. No, I see clearly now. You don't want to help me. You want to erase me. You want my money, my house, my freedom. But you don't want me. Mr. Fisher adjusted his tie, still calm. Mrs. Carter, if you refuse to sign voluntarily, we may have to pursue guardianship through the courts. It's not uncommon for elderly individuals to struggle with clarity. Judges understand that. Elderly. The word burned. I was 60, not 90. I still drove, paid my bills, cooked my meals. But in their eyes, I was already a shadow of a woman. Easy to dismiss, easy to control. Get out of my house, I said, my voice low and steady. Lena's smile faltered. Excuse me? I said get out. My voice rose, echoing off the walls. I may be old, I may be tired, but I am not weak, not anymore. If you think you can strip me of my dignity, you are wrong. You want to take me to court? Fine, I'll see you there, but hear me well. I will fight you with every last breath I have. For the first time, I saw fear flicker in her eyes. Max shifted uncomfortably, torn between loyalty to his wife and guilt toward me. But neither of them moved. I walked to the door and yanked it open. Out, now! Lena's face twisted with anger. You'll regret this, Mia. We'll make sure the court knows exactly how unstable you are. Don't think you can win. I held her gaze. The difference between us, Lena, is that I don't need to lie. The truth is enough. One by one they left, Max with his head down, Lena fuming, Mr. Fisher scribbling notes in his folder. When the door finally shut, the house was quiet again. But it wasn't the silence of defeat this time. It was the silence of strength. I leaned against the door, my heart racing, tears streaming down my face. For the first time in years, they weren't tears of weakness. They were tears of defiance. But deep inside, I knew this wasn't over. 2 days later, an envelope arrived in my mailbox, thick, heavy, from the county courthouse. I tore it open with shaking hands. Inside was a petition. My son and his wife were filing for guardianship. In black and white, it stated, Mia Carter is no longer mentally competent to manage her financial and personal affairs. My knees nearly gave way. They weren't bluffing. They were really trying to strip me of everything. My home, my freedom, my very identity. I sank into a chair, clutching the papers to my chest. The fight had only just begun. The courthouse smelled of polished wood and old paper. My hands trembled as I clutched my purse, but my eyes were steady. I had spent nights preparing, poring over documents, and reminding myself that I was not weak. Not anymore. When my name was called, I stepped into the courtroom. On one side sat Max and Lena, dressed in somber suits, their lawyer, Mr. Fisher, shuffling papers with confidence. On the other side, just me, a gray-haired woman in a simple blue dress carrying the weight of her truth. The judge looked over his glasses. This is the case of Max and Lena Carter versus Mia Carter. Petition for guardianship. Your Honor, I am not confused. I am not unstable. I am a mother who gave everything she had to her son, only to be cast aside when he no longer needed me. Every dollar I spent was not reckless. It was sacrifice. I pulled a folder from my purse. Here are the receipts, rent payments, grocery bills, car loans, medical expenses, all in their names, not mine. That is not confusion, that is proof. The clerk handed the documents to the judge. He flipped through them, eyebrows raised. And this, I said, holding up another paper, is my bank statement. It shows every withdrawal, every transfer. Yes, I spent $33,000, but not on strangers. On them, on the very people who now claim I am incompetent. Lena shifted uncomfortably, her crocodile tears drying on her cheek. I looked directly at Max. For a moment he glanced up, our eyes meeting, and I saw the boy he used to be flicker behind his guilt. But then he looked away.
I turned back to the judge. Your Honor, I may be old, but I am not blind. I see clearly now. My son and his wife want my money, not my well-being. If they cared for me, they wouldn't have excluded me from their wedding. They wouldn't call me a money source. They wouldn't be here, trying to take away the last piece of independence I have. The courtroom was silent. I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. Then I did something I hadn't planned. I pulled out a small notebook, my diary. In this book, I said softly, are the nights I wrote about going hungry so Max could eat. The nights I stayed up sewing clothes so he would have something decent to wear. The times I sold my jewelry to pay his tuition. I wrote them down so I would never forget why I was alive, to give him a future. And now he stands here, trying to erase mine. My voice cracked, but I studied it. That is not incompetence, Your Honor. That is love. Misused. Abused. But not forgotten. The judge leaned back in his chair, eyes heavy with thought. Mr. Fisher cleared his throat, but for once he seemed uncertain. Finally, the judge spoke. I see no evidence that Mrs. Carter is incapable of managing her affairs. On the contrary, she has presented detailed financial records and testimony that demonstrate clarity and responsibility. The petition for guardianship is denied. My breath caught in my chest. For a second, I couldn't move. Then the words sank in. Denied. I was free. Lena gasped, her face twisting in fury. Max buried his face in his hands. The gavel struck, sealing the decision. I walked out of that courtroom with nothing but my purse and my pride. No money was returned. No apology was offered. My son didn't run after me. Lena didn't soften her glare. But I was free. Free from their chains. Free from their control. I had won back my dignity, but I had lost my family forever. The day after the court hearing, I woke up to a strange silence. For years, my mornings had begun with worry. Would the phone ring with another demand? Would I have to choose between paying their bills and my own? But that morning, the silence felt different. It felt like freedom. I made myself a proper breakfast, eggs, toast, fresh fruit. Simple, but it had been years since I'd allowed myself such a small luxury without guilt. I sat by the window, sunlight warming my face, and for the first time in decades, I whispered, "This is my life. And I will live it for me." In the weeks that followed, I began to rebuild. I joined a community book club where women my age gathered every Thursday to discuss novels over tea. I laughed again, real laughter, the kind that bubbles from the soul. I signed up for a painting class at the local art center. My hands were clumsy with the brush, but every stroke on the canvas felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I also began traveling, nothing extravagant, just places I had always dreamed of but never dared. A small cabin by the lake. A weekend trip to the mountains. Even a bus ride to the ocean, where I walked barefoot in the sand and let the waves wash away years of sorrow. And yes, I spent money. But this time, it was mine. A new set of curtains for the living room. A comfortable chair by the fireplace. A bright red scarf that made me feel bold again. For once, I didn't feel guilty. For once, I wasn't an ATM. I was a woman rediscovering her worth. Do I miss my son? Every single day. A mother's heart doesn't stop loving, even when it's been broken. But I've accepted the truth. True love cannot be bought. Real family is not the one that drains your bank account. It's the one that respects your heart. Sometimes family is blood. Sometimes family is chosen. And sometimes, family is the community that surrounds you when you tell your story and hear someone whisper, "Me too." So if you are listening now and you feel invisible or used or forgotten, please hear me. You are not alone. You are not worthless. You are not just what you give. You are who you are. And that is enough. The old Mia died in the shadows of sacrifice. But the new Mia lives in the light of freedom. And I want you to remember, if I can rise again, so can you. Now, my dear friends, I want to turn this over to you. You've walked with me through my story, through the heartbreak, the betrayal, the fight, and the healing. But I know I'm not the only one who has carried scars like these. So tell me honestly, if you were in my place, what would you have done? Would you have kept giving, hoping love might return? Or would you have walked away sooner, saving yourself the pain? I truly want to hear your voice. Share your thoughts in the comments below, because when you share, you don't just speak for yourself. You speak for so many others who may be silently living the same story. This is Memories with Mia, a place where we don't hide our wounds, but learn from them. Where every story carries both pain and wisdom. Where no one has to feel alone. So if my story touched you, please subscribe and join this family. Because here, we are more than strangers. We are each other's strength.